This was a tough one. It's kind of geared after a question that does show up on WebWork, which is why I chose to go over it. Because of the manner in which it's going on here. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. Now, again, this is a situation where, I'm not asked to find what T actually is. As a matter of fact, if I would try to figure out what T actually is, it wouldn't necessarily answer these questions because of the way it's being asked here. Let's have a look at this. Now, 4 pi over 5 is not one of our special angles. I'm trying to keep everything as exact as possible here when I do these questions. So, I'm trying not to go to the calculator and do a lot of rounding and things like that. So, when I'm told though that, that the arc cosine of t is 4 pi over 5. Well, 4 pi over 5 is an angle that would put me into quadrant number 2. Now, that means that if I'm saying that, the ratio is t over 1, assuming this is like, I'm treating this as a unit circle type situation, well, t would have to be negative then, because t would represent more or less the x-coordinate, and the x-coordinate is negative. So I have to keep in mind that t is negative as I go through the rest of this. I also have to keep in mind that as I go through this, that for this circumstance here, the reference angle for what I'm using here is going to be pi over 5, because it says here, okay, I want to do the arc cosine of negative t. Well, negative t would be positive. This is the part that drives students nuts, because t is negative, which makes negative t positive. So if I'm doing the arc cosine of a positive number, I have to keep in mind, kind of going back to the diagram I drew up there, I'm going to get an angle that's in quadrant 1. I'm going to get an angle that's in quadrant 1 and has a reference angle of pi over 5. Also knowing that arc cosine is going to give me an answer between 0 and pi, I know that's more specifically now because I get a positive value, I'm doing the arc cosine of a positive value, it's going to be even more restricted. It's actually going to be between 0 and pi over 2. It has to be in quadrant 1. And that's a reference angle of alpha, so that's going to give me pi over 5. So I didn't really figure out at any point here what t is, because if I figured out what t was, it would be some very nasty looking irrational number that I would have to round off somewhere. And if I rounded it off somewhere, I would not get pi over 5 that easily, especially if I was using a calculator. If I got anything close to pi over 5, it would be a decimal, and I'd go, oh yeah, that's pi over 5. You wouldn't necessarily know that. So, we're trying to be as exact as possible here, and it's usually, under the premise that, you try to be exact unless there's no way to be exact.